I hit go
Oh, you got
live,
it.
but no, then you have to hit go live again.
Right.
What a
For sure,
way! What a way to start off the technology episode.
Transparency. It's transparent.
Transparent.
So transparent. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. The topic of today's episode, brought to you by, the Transparency Coalition, is technology retrofit. We've already demonstrated this, so you're welcome for that. My name is Julianne Godfrey, and I go by the pronouns she, her, hers. Would you all like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'll go. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Quinn Taylor. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am an Eastern Chorus delegate, and I've already outed myself as desperately in need of this conversation, apparently. So.
Great. Can you hear me? I plugged these in, but I don't know what. Okay, you can hear me. I'm Josh Grizzetti. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm a Western Principal delegate.
I am Ryan Morales. I am he, him, and an Eastern Principal delegate.
Excellent. And would one of you mind reading the Transparency Coalition's statement and code of conduct?
Who's doing it?
Who's it going to be?
Josh, do it. I'm pressuring you.
Josh, do it. Josh, do it.
I'd be happy to if I had it.
Yes. I can share my screen with you. Maybe.
And now, no. We got
I can just make it up right now.
It's in the notes. It's in the notes.
Nope.
I'm gonna put it in the chat, guys.
Nope.
This is the technology episode. The
This is
technology
great. We're doing
episode.
great.
I put it in the private chat.
Josh and I have officially now outed ourselves.
All right. What am I reading from this page of notes?
Full transparency.
Full transparency.
Full transparency before this even happens. This conversation is the first time that we've burned the midnight oil, nearly. And I just have to say that for anyone who doesn't know, the first ever equity convention is going to start at 11 a.m. Eastern time, which means that Josh and everyone else on the West Coast has to get up at 8 a.m. So
Guys.
We literally scheduled this because people were like, hey, can we go outside the 9 to 5? Like, hey, can we? And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to schedule a conversation at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. your time, 11 p.m. Me and Ryan's time. Just as a show of solidarity, Josh. So this is for you. This is for you.
And ironically, I'm in New York this week, filming something. So the only reason
you win.
The only reason it was for me this time, because I wasn't going to be able to make it until I realized, oh wait, now it's 11 p.m. and all the things I had scheduled today are done. So I could actually be here. It'll just be the midnight oil. So yeah, just layers upon layers.
Or the 11 o'clock number, I think.
There you go. The 11 o'clock number. Yeah, no, it was of no good for me. But anyway, okay. But yeah, that 8 a.m. thing is going to be really critical when it comes, because I am not a morning person. I would much rather do this at midnight than at 8 a.m. So I hope that those resolutions have to be really good for me to give it a yes vote at 8. If I'm on the fence at all,
Correct.
I'm like, no.
It was all part of the strategy. They really want the West Coaster to just be like,
Veto everything. Yeah. Okay. What would you like me to read off this?
This is the mission statement and the code of conduct.
The blue
it's the
part.
blue text.
I was about to say everything in blue.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Let's see how my cold reading skills are. I hope there's no big words in this. The Transparency Coalition is a group of Actors Equity Association delegates dedicated to leadership and communication that is truly representative of our union's members. We're bringing the discussion of convention resolutions and amendments directly to members through a series of live discussions, allowing members to ask questions and express their support or concerns in real time. We are committed to creating an environment that is rooted in respect, so that we can productively create and sustain this inclusive, respectful, brave, safe space to discuss complicated issues. We will always extend that respect to members watching, and we seek the same in return. What we ask is that both the members engaging in conversation with us and the delegates themselves hold these two agreements. Number 1, speak from the I. Number 2, confront confusion or discomfort with curious questions. While we are happy to engage in constructive debate, we view harassment and discrimination as a clear threat to free expression and participant safety, and as such, they will not be tolerated. We ask that the members who engage with us give us the grace to say, "I don't know," or to get it wrong sometimes. We bring you this series of convention conversations not only to have meaningful dialogue with current and future members, but to learn more ourselves about the important policies of our union and to enhance our ability to serve as trusted liaisons for our fellow union members.
Beautiful. You may take a bow, Josh Grizzetti. Thank you so much for reading that. Yes. And then we encourage our viewers to ask questions, share comments in the chat. We will respond to these live, and we want to hear from you. So if you have a question, pop it in the chat and we will be monitoring it. So today's topic, technology retrofit. Ryan Morales, would you like to discuss for us just the background of kind of what this first resolution is about, which seems to me like it's kind of covering that we need a new website for Actors Equity, that we're looking to outsource IT, maybe work on a digital app. Can you kind of explain to us where this is coming from?
Yeah, so this is actually a combination of 4 or 5 different resolutions. Oh, I should know the exact number. My technology retrofit, which included a lot of this already, combined with some resolutions from Shanika Gooden, Buzz Roddy, and also a membership resolution that got brought up from one of the regional meetings, and I don't know which offhand, to ask to change the time from 12 noon. And so in wanting to condense as much as possible, we all had a meeting last week or sometime to just agree to put all this in the same barrel, because we're all on the same page of we want to see our technology get not just improved, but prioritized. And so this lays out the ways that we want to see it. I think you already started describing it, but we've got partially or fully outsourcing IT. We've got a new website. We've got an app. We've got improving audition systems. We've got, what else is in here? Improving the electronic signups, tying our app to the audition systems. What else is in here? Looking at maybe stratifying the sign-up time so it's not always noon, or just looking for a better way to handle that. And really the idea is like, these are the things we all hear people complain about all the time on Facebook, in the forums, at auditions. I'm a New Yorker, and I go to EPAs. That's what I do. I originally got involved in our union by joining the EPA committee, and that led me to meeting some counselors who encouraged me to run for delegate. And so this technology is like, my frustrations with our audition technology is what got me in this place I'm in right now, and spurred me here. And so this really is a consummate thing of not just what I think or have heard, but what everyone I've talked to in all the auditions, because when you're sitting in chat chilling at an EPA and you're talking to people, and so I tried to think of like, what is everything that people complain about? What do people want to see more of, and how can we address that? So that's the background on it.
Absolutely. And I would love to know, Sarah or Josh, if you want to chip in on this. As a member myself, it's funny, I've actually never, thankfully, had to use the online sign-up. Well, maybe I have once or twice, but I've not kind of encountered the crazy backlog that I know, my roommates had in the past, where they're like, this is insane. Like, I can't even sign up to audition for a job now because the website has crashed, or because, there's just too many people on the site, whatever it is. How do we improve things like that? Is that by outsourcing, you said, to somebody who can build a website that is more elegant than the one that we have, or what's the solution there?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was going to say, first of all, too, just like, I think it's important to point out the timeliness of this resolution as well, with like our past year and the COVID landscape, because like everything that's in this makes our current circumstances, like makes this resolution even more timely in terms of like Zoom auditions and self-tapes, and like all of that is now the only thing. So it's like figuring this stuff out, and like figuring it out fast is super important. And actually, Josh, I don't want to out you and like your age. You don't have to say your age, but I do think that this is an interesting thing, like, because Julianne, I have used like the online sign up system, or tried to, and then there's, Ryan probably knows this better than I do, but there is like half of the sign up slots technically are online and half are still in person, because like
I believe it's 6 per hour or 6 per time slot for an EPA or online, and then 2 per time slot or walk up, and then you have to walk up to be on the alternate list.
Okay, so not exactly half, but like there still is the like wake up early in the morning, stand out on the street regardless of the weather, like you may be standing in the snow but you're like gonna dance, so better warm up. Like, so I like, it's interesting because there's such a like wide, and then also the people that like that's how they did it, like I walked to school both ways uphill, like outside, then they are like, I don't want, like, I reject this technology. So it's like this, you're trying to appease so many different people. It's an accessibility thing. Different. I mean, it's just like there's so much. But like Josh, I'm curious. And also, how is it on the West Coast?
See, here's the thing with those time slots, and I don't mean to speak for the entirety of the West Coast, but kind of, I will. It's not an issue out here, and I know this because of my wife, because she's a chorus dancer, you know.
I was going to say I encountered the same in LA, yeah.
And we moved from New York, and it was in New York. He was like, 12 o'clock, refresh. Oh, the system's crashed. And in LA, it's like, the sign up was two hours ago. Can I still get in? And you get in and you're the only one who's signed up.
Yep.
I'm moving to LA.
And then like 2 weeks later, like the day of the audition, you're like, let me just see how busy it is. Oh, there's 6 people signed up. People don't even use it because they don't have to out here. That may change, you know, in the future, but I know from her experiences, because like you said, Sarah, when I first got to the city and was doing, you know, those auditions, I was standing outside. We didn't have an online version. So, I you know, but I really have to take people who are on that end of it. I think the chorus delegates are probably the most affected. So I hope we hear a lot from them. But most of the technology stuff that is most compelling to me is the stuff that I deal with more. So I'm kind of like, I just trust it in the hands of people who are most directly impacted by that, and say, if you guys are all having a real big problem with it. But to answer Julianne's question about like, how do you make it so that it is more effective? The problem is it's not dynamic enough right now to handle that most of the time. Julianne, please turn off all cellular
technology, you guys. Now I outed myself. What do we? I will show you. That's a spam caller. Thank you, spam caller.
You cannot write this. You cannot write.
Equity was calling us because they were like, "We're calling you out."
That has happened in the first 15 minutes of this.
Equity's IT department was like,
"This is actually our technology, like our commercial for this. Like, we're going to submit this and say, hey, Equity, we would really like a new system."
This is everything that I hoped this Burning the Midnight Oil 11 o'clock number episode would be. Go on, Josh.
Continue, Josh. Yes.
So the idea is, most of the time, let's be honest, Equity's the traffic on Equity's website is not that heavy, but then at this 1 hour on certain days, it explodes. So they need to have either they have to just fork it up and pay to have something that can handle that heavy load at any time, or they need something that's dynamic where they can predict when they're going to need the extra space and when they're not. I'm not tech savvy enough to do that, but that is not the craziest pitch, you know, like they can find people who can figure this out. So, yeah.
I have a question. And maybe Ryan knows the answer. Maybe anyone knows the answer. Specifically, I'm going to like hone in specifically with emails from Equity. There is, and also the sweet, blessed Facebook groups. Like inevitably, someone gets an email and then within 5 minutes goes to some social media platform and is like, check out that email, huh? And then everybody else is like, what email? I never get email. What? And then like 2 hours later, they're like, I got the email. But because I'm like, because my mind works the way it does, I'm like, why does this happen? And so I figured out, please ignore my dog squeaking his tennis ball in the background. I figured out that it's like has something to do with the system, and the emails that are sent out are batched. They go, and because there's like 51,000 members, right?
Sure.
What I don't understand is I was in, I can't remember what Facebook group it was in, what conversation it was in, but a fellow delegate said something to the effect of like, if you're upset with the batching of emails, be upset at like, it was something about federal law or labor law or the NLRB.
I think I can jump in and clarify. You're on the right track. There's certain laws that affect how we have to send emails that were put in recently. So we have to use a third-party email service in order to send the emails, which affects deliverability. It affects batching. I'm personally unclear, and I haven't done a lot of investigation into this because, frankly, no one will give us the information to do any investigation into this anyway, so I didn't bother. But like, will outsourcing IT help our email deliverability? God, I fucking hope so. But I don't actually know, because we can never really get a straight answer about it more than I just kind of gave you that. I don't know why the deliverability is bad, but the batching is pretty normal for 51,000 emails. And there's a whole issue with that. It costs us money to send emails because it's done through a third-party service, because it has to be done because of labor laws or laws around labor unions, rather. So
okay, that makes sense. So it's like essentially, speaking from my own frame of reference of the research I've done with health insurance and healthcare, it's like the Equity League Benefits Fund legally has to be a separate entity from the union itself. Interesting. Also, first of all, Colleen Great said, I'm such a big fan of everyone here, especially Harvey. That's my dog. Nothing further to add. Thank you. Sue Caputo says, thank you, Ryan. You may recall I brought up my concerns about outsourcing this. Have we presented the spec requirements to our inside equity IT developers? Do we know if outsourcing may lose union jobs? I don't know what any of that means, right?
I can talk about that. Yeah. So here's the thing. If you wanted, like, I don't know, I've been trying to think of a good metaphor for this to maybe use it to talk about all this in the convention, because we have great speeches. But it's similar to like accounting. If you want to pay for an in-house accountant, you have to pay a salary. They're on staff all the time and their hours are limited. And you have maybe one person, maybe two people. We're not a big organization in terms of actual organizations. We're like a mid-size organization. And so if you want really good accountants at a cheaper price, you have an accounting firm that handles it, that you send your accounting stuff to. And maybe you have an in-house bookkeeper, right? As opposed to hiring an in-house CPA, which at a CPA company in New York City is going to run you six figures, double six figures, triple six figures, if you really want someone good, maybe more.
Wow.
And so the thing about our staff is we're a theater labor union. We don't have a lot of money. Even like people grunt and groan about Mary's salary, but someone doing Mary's job in a different company will make way more money than she does. Sure. And that goes for all of our staff. And so we just don't have the big bucks to attract really, and I don't say this as a dig at our staff, but we don't have the money to either hire enough staff to handle the job or staff that we can attract the best and brightest, so to speak. You know what I mean? With the salaries we have. So by outsourcing, we can get much better systems, and we get people who have built, if we're using a IT department, we can get people who have built these things for other people. We could get more brains, more heads on the table. We can get something that's more 24/7, et cetera. And so even if we did turn to our in-house IT developers and say, hey, we want all these things, it would cost more. We might have to hire more people. We might have to hire better people. We have to spend more money on our infrastructure versus just going to an outsourced IT or partially outsourced IT, which I think we'll get to Sue's question in a second. But that way we can essentially get more bang for our buck.
Because so essentially, and maybe too, it would be like, you may have to break it up into pieces of like, if it's an app that's the focus, or like an email that is the focus, like hiring a specialist of that particular thing.
Yeah, but then an IT department, an outsourced IT department would have all those people. If we need a specialist for an app, they would have
I
the app specialist. If we have trouble with this, they have all those people already onboarded, more or less.
Okay.
And again, I'm not an IT expert, so I recognize there's
Okay, wait. Also, to piggyback off of your accounting analogy, because you started to lose me, but then you said accounting, and my girlfriend is an accountant, and she just started a job with an outsourced accounting agency. Like, so it's 100% remote. And she has like not very much experience in QuickBooks, which is an accounting software, but she has like a ton of experience in Intact, another accounting software. And so this firm that she got hired by hired her Intact expert and this other woman, QuickBooks expert, at the same time. So now they're both under like the umbrella of this outsourced accounting firm. That's interesting. Sue asked to follow up, but I do want to point out when Sue said, do we know if outsourcing may lose union jobs? That is because the staff that works for Actors Equity is also unionized. They're in their own union. A lot of people don't realize that. So like the staff isn't in Actors Equity Association. They're in their own union. But okay, so then to follow up, which I think you were kind of going to go towards Sue's question anyway, Ryan, but Sue said, have we done the work? I assume she means like the research of it, of looking into it. Sorry, Sue, are you there? Are you there?
Can I answer her first one? That's more clear?
Yeah.
So, it might lose union jobs, possibly. I'm personally a fan of like, again, without knowing all the specific numbers and breakdown and sitting down, I wouldn't be in charge of this anyway. So I just didn't. Why am I going to do all that research? I don't have access to the financials, the information. I don't have the ability to know, to make any of these decisions. But I would be a fan of partially outsourcing. That way we've got in-house people who do handle some of the more specific IT that can be a little bit more custom, like our people who are customized towards our specific union. They understand our specific union. It's not uncommon to have one or two in-house IT people that work with the outsourced. As far as union jobs, I think it depends. I believe we have a policy, whether it's a strict policy or a loose policy, where when we hire or go to places, we try to also hire union. If that is possible. So like, the only reason I know that is because I remember in a discussion about the special membership meetings, they said like they can get really expensive because we're not going to go to some hall where they don't have union workers. We're going to hire in a place that has union workers. So that means it can be a little bit more expensive to rent out a space or hire this or that, the other. So I don't know the status of unions in the IT world, but potentially we could hire a firm where its workers are unionized if that exists.
I have something to say.
Yes, please.
Only because, Ryan, you bring up hiring union people, and this might be a shameless plug, but I'm going to say it. Not that I have this knowledge, but I am the director of content for an organization called Artists Who Code, which is basically fully comprised, not fully, it's comprised of all artists, but a lot of them are union actors from all over the country. And it was formed by, shout out to Catherine Ricafort and Scott McCreary, who are both married, who were both Broadway performers and software engineers. So they started this group at the beginning of the pandemic. And what's happened is it was initially just a support group to provide a safe space for artists kind of thinking about transitioning into the tech realm. Now we've grown this group to, over like, I want to say, it's certainly at least 100 members strong in terms of like people who are directly, within the group and messaging one another and providing support. Many of them have now gone through boot camps, have full-time tech jobs. One of them is, I write the profiles on all of them. So I've interviewed a lot of them, and a lot of their stories are literally, one of them, shout out to Carla Stickler. She played the Elphaba standby on Broadway for 10 years and now works for a company called Bubble, which makes apps with no code. So she teaches people how to do that for a living now. So I would just like to kind of put out into the universe for equity, for anybody trying to solve this problem. There are many union actors looking for these jobs right now. And I think if the ask is put out there, a lot of them would be willing to help do this work. So I'm curious, in that sense to know it's awesome to know that you're saying that you do hire a lot of union people if you can. And those people then have a background in the arts. They know what it's like to audition at 5 a.m. in front of Pearl Studios when you're waiting outside the door in the snow, all of those things. So I would just like to posit that. But again, I don't know how you would hire people or go about that.
Right. Can I amend my statement just to make sure I was being clear earlier? I don't think it's so much that our union goes out of its way to hire union actors or equity members as in union people, but unionized workplaces.
I see.
When the option would be between hiring it would make sense. If we're a labor union, we would hire or want to work with a company that's unionized over a company that isn't. So that's what I meant in terms of like going to a space where the restaurant workers are unionized or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And in this case,
within union.
I'm like, why not both?
2 birds, 1 stone.
Well, and also because then you have people coming from like people who get it, who know the needs of the union and of what you might be trying to build and how to optimize that.
If nothing else, just having, because also I always get so nervous about anything. I'm like, but that's probably breaking some sort of law, or that's like conflict of interest or like something like that. But if nothing else, just the prospect of that is exciting to me, because I think that a lot of, whether it's like being on a negotiations committee or like being on a committee in general or et cetera, like there are members who have all of these incredible skill sets and are like, please let me help. And I think to be super like now with like the safety protocols and stuff, like everybody I feel like that I've talked to in our union is like, we know that staff is overworked. We know that staff is furloughed. Like, can we help? Can we call producer? Like, what can we do if we're not like, if this is legally barring us here or whatever, like what can we do? Okay, wait. Sue has one more question and I'm so sorry. Sue is losing me with talk of specs, but probably not Ryan. But we already know that I'm just here for the 11 o'clock number and not the tech specs. Sue says, defining the specs. If we don't define the specs in-house or outsourcing, we can lose out. Have we defined the specs? What does define the specs mean, Ryan?
That's a great question, Julianne. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know? Because I'm not sure.
I don't. I guess I would say, Sue. Do you mean if we don't define the specs, like the specs of the job itself, of the tech people that we're hiring, like who they can be, how much they're paid, the specs in that manner?
I would imagine it's more the technical specs of like, well, how much traffic do you actually need to the hours of that and
the
what
RAM
exactly
and the memory and the right?
like it's a Windows 98 computer. That's right.
Like I'm at the Apple store.
That's
asking the Genius Bar for help.
or just what exactly it is that we need the site and the app or both to do. How what are the specs that we're talking about how they cross over on what type of platforms, like having all those ducks in a row kind of thing. I don't know. I'm assuming that's in the ballpark of what she's asking, but
I think
clarify.
I think what's most promising to me or like encouraging for me is that we have been told as delegates to the convention that, because a lot of these resolutions we've already talked about are advisory to council, which means that if they pass at the convention, then they go to council to then be like further debated, further voted on, etc. But then also like Sue gave us a thumbs up. We did it. Specs. Thanks, Sue. Please keep watching. But one of the things, like obviously any sort of resolution that's being proposed is going to, Sue said Josh got it. Josh knows the specs.
Way to go, Josh.
Yes,
way to
Josh.
go.
I'm nerdy enough.
But we have been told that so there's so much that goes into not only writing all of these resolutions, but then also like on the back end of combing through them, like legal counsel has to comb through them and make sure that they're not illegal, they're not outside of the interests of the union itself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that we know, like the delegates have been told that's happening, is also they're looking at, I think, kind of stuff like this in terms of specs, like in terms of cost, et cetera, because, you know, all of this stuff that we want to do costs something, whether it's money, time, brain power, whatever it is. And so I believe that for each resolution that goes to the floor to convention, we will get also like in the brief or in the language or whatever, and we may even get that beforehand. I don't remember,
It's
but
supposed
for
to be
sure.
in the digital booklet.
Is it okay?
Booklet. What did I
Booklet.
say before?
I don't know. I wasn't gonna. Yeah, we're 28 minutes to midnight here on the East Coast.
Yeah, turn into a pumpkin.
Well, what I was gonna. Oh, go finish.
No,
Sarah, please.
I was just gonna say that. Basically when we get like the final resolution language, because like Ryan said, this is the merge of like 4 or 5 other resolutions. You know, there's like all of this work that people have been doing. We will also get information from staff that's like, this is what we think it would cost. This is what it would entail in terms of like plan of action, et cetera, anything that they can provide. And sometimes it's hard because it's like, we don't know. But that we'll also get that information to inform our voting, which is helpful. I have no idea what that looks like, first ever convention, but it's helpful, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I would also ask, like, is there a way, and again, if it sounds like to me, the question is, you know, can we outsource, number one? Number two, where does that money come from, right? Like, what is Equity's budget? Because I truly don't know the answer to that question. And three, if the money's in place, could you also utilize partnering with an organization like Be an Arts Hero that has access to all this data, that has a volunteer team that knows at least the data part of things very well, and that might be able to help because I'm sure they have people who know these things who've crafted their website, which to me is very compelling, very easy to use. I don't know. So like partnering with other arts organizations who may have people to help in this regard, maybe? Yeah,
I think those are all great ideas. I think the not the problem, but like going back to what Sarah's saying about process is, we don't really have enough information. We're not given it. Even if we dig, we're not given the information to really give much in terms of specs. This resolution could be like 10% more specific. I could say, I want the website to do this. We want the website to do that. We want this. But we don't have the information to talk about money or talk about specs or talk about any of that. As well as what Sarah said, it goes to council. So it could get changed. And then it goes, for the IT specifically, it then goes to the executive director, who then has full power to decide what to do with it. So getting into anything much more specific than what is on page is both outside of our abilities. Not that we're not smart, but just, I would say outside of our resources. Sorry, that's probably the better way to say it. Sure. It's outside of our resources, and it's ultimately not a decision that can be made by council or delegates. Beyond just saying, hey, Mary, we want you to look into this. And ultimately she gets final thing, or whoever the executive director is, that person gets final say on how this would play out as a lot of this resolution, actually. Sure.
Well, and I guess too, asking all of you, because I don't know, I'm a Western delegate, what am I saying, delegate? I'm not a delegate, a Western Union member, coming from having been in the East Coast for 8 years. And so I don't know, I guess what the hope is of pitching a resolution like this at the convention. If it's not passed, what are the ways in which we can put pressure on Equity to put attention on things like this? Do you know what I mean? Versus if it is, great, how do we back it? And so I don't know, I guess it's a twofold question of how can we best help you as delegates to put focus on things like this, where we're we want this changed?
It's a good question. If it doesn't pass, I don't know that because I think whatever does pass is going to keep the council's hands very full until the following year when we pass a whole new round. And so I feel like if it doesn't pass, the best thing to do is to rework it and submit it again for a resolution the following year. It's a pretty quick turnaround. At least that's for this year. Once we go past 2022, then maybe things will shift a little, because then the convention will be every other year.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
Yeah, and then I think after that too, in the in-between years of council or
convention.
The in-between years of the every other year conventions, then there are membership meetings.
So then it would be a matter of presenting it at a membership meeting.
I don't think those membership meetings have any power, though. Like you can't send anything up to council from them.
I think that too. I think you're right, Ryan. We need to look on this for sure. The language that was passed, like when we voted to have convention. But I think Ryan's right. I think that whereas now, like, anybody can write a motion and submit it at like a membership meeting, and actually this convention, like, we have a few things that were brought to membership meetings, if I'm making sense, that are like that we could vote on, consider, and like bring to the floor. And I think that ability is removed now. I think Ryan is correct. Really? Oh, go ahead. Go.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, just to tag on to this answer, my hope, this is more hope, this is not a reality. My hope is that in the future, we have a place for failed resolutions to go, to be workshopped in the in-between time.
Yes, yeah.
I would very much support or even write that resolution at the next convention. And in the meantime, there's a lot of resolutions that are trying to give us more transparency into how council operates. I think if those happen, it gives us more ability to hold council accountable. Or there's another resolution, I wrote that one too, I wrote too much, that asks for regular reports. So if we can get reports from what's going on, it's a lot easier to mobilize what we know is actually happening versus hearsay about what it is. I think the other thing you can do is attend council meetings. Which is very time intensive, yes, but you can, if you see something not get passed, you can ask the councilors who voted against it and shoot them an email and say, hey, why did this happen? Convention supported that. Why did this get neutered in council? Or what? That's unfortunately at this point one of the only things we can do, besides just talking to our councilors and making it really, really clear what passed in convention is important to us. So
and I think it's interesting because I also think part of the answer is just continuing to do things like this and like have conversation about things. I was going to say the
same, yeah.
Because it's interesting. It's this like tricky balance, and anyone that's ever observed a council meeting, P.S., any member at large in good standing can observe one, and there's one on Tuesday, and you can email and ask to observe. DM me if you want to know how. But it is very illuminating because, like, you have Robert's rules and all of these different things that are, it's like another world, another language. And so it immediately gives you like an understanding of, oh, the wheels are turning, but the wheels turn slow, and people don't like when change is slow. And so it's like, but that's the system that we have, right? So it's this like conflict. And I don't necessarily know the answer, but then to circle back around to, I'm going to tie together like two loose ends. The interesting thing that got brought up about resolution writing in general and something like this is, okay, well, Ryan and the other resolution makers that this merged with, is there any merit to adding a timeline or et cetera? Like for that extra added accountability. Like so you're like, okay, if 6 months after we have this and then blah, 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 blah. But what's difficult about that is, okay, and then I'm also going to use this moment as well to pull up, Sue said that her issue with the resolution as it stands, Sue is also another delegate. Just so Sue will be voting. Her issue with the resolution is that the actual resolution language, like on the page, says outsourcing.
Sure.
But like outsourcing the IT. So I'm about to tie together so many things, and none of it is going to be a concrete answer. So don't expect that, because I have no answers.
Oh no!
And
then
freeze.
That's it.
Wait, that is the finale of Technology Retrofit.
Technology Retrofit. This has been a great show, everybody. We'll see you later.
I have no answers. End scene.
I have no answers. Freeze. All right, you're back, Sarah.
You're back. What answers
Tell
don't
us
you
your
have?
non-answers.
I mean, listen, I have no answers, but I am a witch. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell y'all. And I got my second dose of my vaccine today, so like my witch powers are like peak right now. Okay,
it's kicking in right about now.
To be very clear, okay, this is the 9-hour mark post-vaccine. If anybody wants to know when your witch powers activate, okay, I have no answers, but these like, the timing of that freeze. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. I will be here until midnight and then I will expire. So like, okay, the specific language of like Sue's issue with like, but you put in the language outsourcing. So if we don't know the specifics of if that can even happen, then like if I vote for, there's like so much. Ryan, is this advisory to council?
No, of course it is.
Okay.
It's advisory to council, to advisory to executive director. Almost none of it council can even do.
That. You said that. I'm sorry, you said that. So like there's that issue of like concrete language, and I would say that that's like a specific point, like a specific word, right? And then there's also the question that I was saying of like specificity of timelines or accountability, whatever, because all of these, and this is something that is also so nuanced in terms of things that the three of us as non-counselor delegates are like, because counselors may not vote for something based on things like this. And I'm not saying that that's what Sue is doing, but I'm saying like all of that stuff is specific to if people vote for or against it. Because if you put something too specific as far as a timeline and like it's just not possible, then and like people know that, then they could vote against that. But then what Ryan is saying, which I think is so interesting, is from Ryan's standpoint and the other people that wrote this resolution, like they did their research and they've emailed staff, they've emailed lots of people like asking for these specs, asking for things, and maybe not everything, but like this is the best resolution they could write with the information that was available to be given to them.
Sure.
Am I making sense? Ryan,
Yes.
Is that like a clear summary of sort of?
Yeah. I mean, I think Sue just is against outsourcing our IT, which if that's the case, she decides if she wants to vote for or against the full resolution.
Fair.
And that, but yeah, I mean, this is, like I said earlier, I think this is as specific as we're gonna, as we can make it 10% more specific.
Right. It's just interesting to me, like that all of that nuance is never lost on me, and it's something that I had no perspective or context of until I started, until I was like, guess I'm a delegate now, and then started doing the thing, so I think that's interesting. And I don't necessarily know the answer, but I think that a lot of other resolutions that are being proposed in regards to communication and transparency and everything else, could help to remedy some of that. Even an idea of, like Ryan was saying, of failed resolutions. If this resolution fails, these are all great things. So hey, is there a failed resolutions committee or whatever?
Right.
And only somber music plays.
Well, and I also think you're right, Sarah, in saying this urgent is already, what did I just say? This issue.
This urgent is already.
This urgent's already urgent.
It's only 8:46, y'all. It's 8:46. Just saying. She needs to eat dinner. No, I was going to say, this issue is already urgent and will be even more so when we return to work, right? Like people are going to be like, if our technology doesn't work, what have we learned during this pandemic, right? Like I can already hear the fury happening around auditioning because people will be so desperate to return, right? So in my mind, I want to say this seems incredibly urgent and timely, and like they're gonna say yes, right? But I think to answer your question, Sarah, it seems to me, even if it doesn't pass, it will still be a very prominent issue that we're going to have to talk about.
Yeah, I think it.
Maybe.
Well, they already announced that they're going to move the cards to a
right
digital
to be digital.
format.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That some of it's already in the works anyway,
Which is
despite
right.
the fact that resolutions were on the way to accommodate that. And now,
I was just about to say that is like another perfect example of how like things change, but like the wheels of change are slow. And so it's like, I can't even remember the exact like month and year that the digital membership resolution passed at a membership meeting. Like someone wrote that and was like, I have this idea. It would save us tens of thousands of dollars, like all this stuff. And then, yeah, I can't even remember how many original resolutions were. I mean, there were over like 130 resolutions, over 120 resolutions that were written, and we all had to read through all of them and then vote on if we wanted them to be considered at convention. And like multiple people wrote the digital membership proposal, like the digital membership card proposal. They spent time on the resolution, and then like days after that voting period ended, they came out with that email and were like, digital membership cards. And so I felt so bad. I did not write a resolution about digital membership cards, but I felt so bad for the people that did, because that's the perfect example. Like the people that spent the time writing that also are very understanding, because they understand the wheels of change are slow, but they were like, it's just a bummer to me because I spent all that time, and like if I had just been told like, hey, we're working on this, I would have spent my time doing something else.
Right, exactly. You know? Yeah.
So it's like,
that's why transparency is so important.
Yeah,
and communication.
Heather Rose said that was like over 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. But so had we like known that they were already, that was one of the things that they were working on, you know, already, then those people would have spent their time probably working on a different resolution.
Well, can I play devil's advocate on that too? That we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. If they rushed finishing that before the convention or announced it before, you know, a month before the convention because it was in the works, maybe it would have gotten done a few months later. I think what's been cool to see is that whether these resolutions pass or not, they're already starting to affect the culture, because they're giving staff, council, the other elected leaders like a real insight into what people are wanting.
Right. Exactly.
Which I think may also play into what Sue has written here too, Sarah, if you want to throw that up. She's
throwing it up.
Yeah, I'm against deciding that we need to outsource before we develop specs of what we need. Contracting out is always an option. I would like to know if it's the best option. I kind of feel like that is inherently now in the logistical scope of the council and then the staff. So Mary or whoever else ends up deciding these things, to say, well, the heart of this is here's what we want to achieve. So the best way to do that may not be to outsource. So we will accommodate that part of it and not take the outsourcing recommendation, which is all it ever really was anyway, right? It was an advisory to council. So that is an option, but we're kind of saying we don't know enough about that as delegates. So we are trusting you to do your due diligence, and what we might suspect is the best option is outsourcing. But if you find a better way, then maybe that's the path they'll take. And that would be an option. So I feel like the logistics of what Sue was asking about really would not be in convention's hands at the end of the day. Sure. Ryan, do you think that's correct?
I think that was really well said, honestly.
Okay.
I do too. And I didn't, when Sue said that about the language, I was like, oh yeah, crap. Because what if accounting, like, outsourcing. Can I jump on that and
Sue say
I'd like if it was worded that way.
It is in fact worded that way. I'll read the language.
Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm a little salty. Be it so resolved that a recommendation is sent to council to send a recommendation to our executive director that cost-saving measures be considered, including but not limited to a partial or full outsourcing of our RT department in order to create more affordable and up-to-date back-end systems for our union's technology systems. So exactly what Josh just said is it.
Oh.
We want this thing to happen. Here's a way we think it might happen. It might be other ways. It might be more ways.
Huh.
But it's
Also-
definitely worded that way.
Also, full disclosure, this is like the newest version, right? From like maybe a day ago after the
That language hasn't changed.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. I read these resolutions so long ago. Look at us.
And in a fever pitch.
Oh, we got another thumbs up from Sue. Hey.
Yay.
I'm getting that.
But also, I'm
giving those 100 points to Josh.
I'm getting.
Look who's on his anyway.
I'm getting
Well, Josh.
a
Slytherin
little.
wins.
I'm getting a little stressed and overwhelmed. Not really, but just like I hope that everyone sees that like this is this is the process of like literally like that one part of it that like then Josh.
And
I mean,
we
this
have
is
7 minutes to do it. Right? Is that what you're stressed about?
That's
Because
right.
That's what I'm stressed about.
That's right. I mean, but also that's why I'm like thankful for this conversation tonight, right? Because now, like, I'm working it out in real time, and like, what I'm gonna have to text Josh Cressetti in 7 minutes before we vote, and then he's gonna have to type all of that and try to listen to debate. Come on,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be nuts. Yeah. But all right. Is there anything else in the tech thing that we need to address before we run out of time?
Well, what I was going to say is, as I'm looking through this, and again, just as an outside eye, it seems to me almost, and this is my personal opinion, I guess, is I'm like right now, I just went on Actors Equity's website. And to me, it's not that it's difficult to use. Like, I know I can see where the resources are. I know how to navigate, how to find things for the most part. To me, it's more about communication, which I think Sarah mentioned. But like, if things are happening, I know that we get, I think it's a newsletter once a month. Maybe
now it's once a week.
Once a week.
You're right. Yes.
Three.
Yes. And I appreciated that. Once they said that, I was like, great. Yes, let's increase this communication. But I wonder, like, I don't know who runs Equity's Instagram or if there's an official Equity Facebook and all of that stuff. And that's my question is, to me, like Sarah's saying, if we instantly then go to these other technological platforms, then we need to be equally represented across them so that people are I mean, we're just in this era. I hate it myself of social media, but if that's where people go to get credible information, then it needs to be good. And it needs to be, not necessarily continuous in terms of like, I don't need more content. I just want quality, accurate content about what's happening. Right.
I think I have the perfect illustration of this. So the Josh is all yours.
Well, I'm like, that's like walking into an audition and being like,
Okay,
I have the perfect interpretation of this role. Are you ready?
Wait, give me your 16 bars. Give me your top note, Josh. Let's go.
Let's hear it,
Dang
Sarah.
Josh.
Taylor.
You set me
Go,
up.
Sarah.
You set me up. Okay. This is, oh my God. Okay. So, the March on Broadway movement thing that is happening right now with Instagram graphics, etc. Does everyone know loosely what I'm talking about? If you don't, it's I'll send it to you, Julianne, but essentially it's being organized. I'm not totally sure who's organizing it, but it's being organized. I don't even want to speak for what it is, but essentially it's this March on Broadway movement, and they're offering or they're asking for demands. So like demand number 1 was put Scott Rudin on the do not work list. Demands 2 and 3 had to do with diversity and inclusion and like percentage of the 2019 to 2020 budget that went to like that was spent by the union on diversity and inclusion. So these demands are being posted on Instagram, and because of the climate, everything else, it's like getting huge traction, right?
Well, and it's important to say that the comma behind that is the demands are we are not paying dues anymore until these demands are met, right? Like there's like we're not paying.
Yeah.
That's like
Sorry.
That's the very strong piece of that puzzle. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Josh. So I I don't want to say any more than that because I don't want to speak to the movement. The organizers are not here. I will say, I read these and I was like, well, I don't think number 1 is legal, but we're not going there. 2 and 3, I think this information exists. Like, I was like, I went on a hunt and I was like, I think that these already exist. So I tracked down the Instagram graphic to like the maker and DM'd them and was like, hey, I think that this exists. I'm doing research, but like, contact me. They gave me their email address. And then last night at like 11 p.m., I finally like put all the pieces together, my own research, other delegates and counselors research, like, hey, did you see this? Did you see this? And like, essentially the Department of Labor government website has LM2 forms that detail, like, it's like public financial information of the union that like, because of the class of federal entity it is, like this information, it's equivalent to how people find like artistic directors' salaries of nonprofits and then make these Instagram graphics, right? Like it's public information. You have to dig for it, but like it's public, right?
It's journalism.
So I was like, okay, if you go there, like that's there. And I gave them the link and then I was like, drop down this. It says this. That's the federal name. It's equity, I promise. Click this. This is the year. You're only looking for 2019 to 2020. So that's good. Like from your Instagram graphic, that's great because the new information wouldn't be published. And then I was like, there's so much nuance about this that I do not know if like the words on your Instagram graphic, if you can find it here, but like this is a start. And then in terms of it, one of the demands was like what are the lists of the BIPOC organizations that Equity is collaborating with? I'm paraphrasing, but that was the idea. And I was like, I think this exists. So then I start like hunting through the portal. Other counselors and delegates are like sending me links. And I find like there is an incredible diversity and inclusion blog that has been going on for a year. Equity has been working for a year with a fierce Black woman and equity, diversity, and inclusion strategist that, again, like Ryan said, is because she's equity staff, like is severely overworked and underpaid for like her ability, you know, like that's just like a reality. And I've also heard her, I've observed council meetings and like heard her speak just like fire. Okay. And also there was a recent blog post. It had no date with like lists of organizations. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, so I send all of this. Yes, Heather. Oh, geez. Sorry. Heather is just backing me up here. Bliss Griffin is a gift. Yes.
I mean, her name is Bliss. Need we say more?
She's pretty sweet.
Truly.
Yeah.
So I immediately, I send all this information and then I'm like, full disclosure, this blog post with these organization lists, I don't know when it was posted. Like it has no timestamp. Some of this other stuff has like 9 months ago, 10 months ago. And I was like, I don't know. But I immediately then sent off an email to like 3 staff people who I thought may know the answer. And then this was last night, pretty much exactly 12 hours later, which is like insane because it's a Sunday morning. Like, what are you, please stop working. I get a reply from an equity staff member saying, hey, actually that blog post was posted yesterday in response to that. Like, so that I don't know the exact time, but like, you know, they wake up and it's like 10 a.m. Eastern and then on Saturday, and then they're posting it literally on a Saturday. I don't know. But then the staff member also said, and like, to be perfectly honest, almost all of the information was in another place on the website. We just consolidated it all. So that's like a perfect example of what you're saying, Julianne, of like, it's not necessarily like, yes, I can wade through a million tabs and like find it, or I can search for it and find it. But it's like
the telling.
But
it's not accessible.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And then, but I also like, and applause to staff. Like, I am also like, please, you don't have to reply. I should have put that, like, please just wait till Monday. It's okay. But but I fully appreciate that. But it is like, I think it's telling for so many different reasons, and like speaks to the urgency of the moment on every side. Like, I don't know. But I feel like a perfect example of, and then they also proceeded to say, like, they didn't say this explicitly, but I would guess it's probably going to go out in like this week's Equity Weekly or something. Like they basically said, you know, the strategy is to amplify this. But obviously this person replied on a weekend, and like Monday when they get back in the office or virtual office, like maybe the communications team is like, hey, we did this within hours, let's amplify. I don't know. Right. But that I feel like is, Josh, would you agree that that's like the perfect 16-bar interpretation of?
I think that was a full song cut.
That was a full song, yeah. But yes.
You might have given us a second song in there. But,
Ryan, you took my joke.
I'm so sorry, Josh.
I was so ready. I was like, finish the sentence, Clara, I got it. And then you
oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I have I have an 8-bar cut version of that. A great drinking game. Pick a page in the Equity website. Everyone like picks one and chooses one that would be hard to find. And you do a drinking game, and whoever takes the longest to find it has to take a shot. I promise you it'd be really entertaining.
That's the nerdiest drinking game I've ever. That's like the delegate drinking game.
I have a pitch to Natalie Charlotte Ellis. I hope she doesn't see this before I pitch it to her, because we text all the time about nonsense. And literally the other day she copied and pasted part of her life science paper essay. She's going back to school. It was like this, we're texting back and forth, and then all of a sudden she sends me this paragraph about like volcanoes, and then she goes, oh fuck, that was my life science paper. I was like, okay. But Ryan, I have this idea literally of doing basically the equivalent of this, but with just me and Natalie, and we call it 2 delegates and a cocktail, and we share our screens and navigate the website in real time.
I mean, that game.
Like, very niche, limited demographic for your audience, but marketable, I think, and maybe probably will be a Netflix show.
Maybe what I can do instead of doing a speech on this is I just screen share my computer and go to the website.
I was just going to say, do a
give
show
me something. Someone give me something to find. Oh shit! Is it over here? Is it in the governance
suggestions? Name anything. Name anything you're interested in.
Name a page you want me to find. Oh, it's not, for a minute. Just a minute of me like trying to navigate the website.
But to Julianne's point, also, I think that it works because the website itself is like a wealth of information. It's just like, so I think, Julianne, to close this out, it's like it's the perfect balance of what you said in terms of like ramping up our social media presence or even like awareness, or I don't know. And it's so hard too, because now it's all dependent on algorithms and whatever. So that's like literally a full-time job just for someone.
Exactly.
And it could actually be like 3 full-time jobs.
Exactly.
It could be like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yep.
And TikTok for full-time
and
jobs.
LinkedIn.
Wow.
Like, get more artists on LinkedIn.
If you are still there, I am creating union jobs right now.
Well, but that's what I was going to say, is if any time we are more than ever in need of work and of this, what I keep calling the creative renaissance in tech, which is like the arts cannot exist without technology and vice versa. We have to be married together now, because otherwise neither of us is going to thrive. So to that end, I would just ask, Ryan, is there a place where we as members can find the language of these resolutions, like so that we know what's going to the convention, or is there a way to do that?
I mean, like, I can just share. No, my document. I can't share my document. It has the speech on it. It's got to be secret.
Right. But is there a way for us to find any of this?
Yeah, Katrina Michaels shared this. It's not like super easily accessible. It's on the Facebook groups. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Katrina Michaels posted all the original language of things that originally got submitted. As far as, and maybe she'll do it again when we get the booklets.
That would be great. I would love that as a member of like what's happening, what's going to
it's just from my friends who are not delegates but members of the union. They were just like, each of these videos is 2 hours long. Like I don't want to, I can't, I don't have time to dedicate 8 hours of my life.
And we were like, exactly.
Exactly. That's the service.
I will say also, like, there are definitely people like you, Julianne, who like want that. And we hear that in terms of things that we can do. And yeah, Sue said, love you're putting it out there. But like, there's definitely things that we can do. And like, we hear that and like our wheels are always turning and like brainstorming. But also I think that to find that middle ground of like what Josh is saying, like this is also a reason we're doing stuff like this.
This is great. I was just going to say this is a great example of that. Yeah.
And people can't this whether we like it or not now lives on Facebook. So
right.
whether I like it or not.
Yeah. And I should say this, what Katrina did that's amazing is she went in and time-stamped everything. So if you're only interested in 1 or 2 resolutions, you can find the title of that resolution and go to that timestamp. So she knew she was heading it off at the pass and did the work to do all that. It's a massive amount of work that she did on this.
Yeah.
And it is there. If you're really interested in it, you should comb through the videos she made.
And the only thing that I'll add to sort of close us out is that like this sort of thing about what's the work going on is accessible to anyone in theory. There are specifics and like things that you won't hear us necessarily address in this format of like bargaining and negotiations and stuff, which even internally there's like disagreement of like, why can't we talk about it? But I think Katrina literally just reads it. And but those also live on like Actors Equity Facebook pages. But you can search. You can search for like her, and then
Can I address? I know we're like over. Can I address one thing you said, Julianne, that I think ties into what you're saying now too, which is if council hears from more members that members want to see the resolutions, then council might actually find a mechanism to share them without us having to make a resolution about it next year to say, hey guys, because we didn't make one this year. Hey guys, we'd like this resolution language to be available to members. Maybe we should do that. Sorry, I'm salty today.
No, that makes sense because it's that fine line of like wanting to be welcomed into the conversation, but not knowing where that information lives, which is kind of the crux of your resolution too, of like, how can this be more accessible and more distributed, you know?
Yeah, but I think that an action step of saying, we want access to this, please give it to us.
Right.
Because I think from conversations I've heard or seen or things, there's just the feeling that like we don't really need to share this with members. Only delegates really need to see it. Like,
right. We're like, no, we're the union. Yeah.
It's so weird.
And it's that always, and I say this too in terms of this came up this past year with us getting little tidbits of our union being like, we had this many work weeks this year. Like in spite of COVID, we had this many work weeks. And then there are people that are like, where? Tell us, tell us the theaters.
Break those numbers down.
And what I've said, and this is also like, oh, it lives on the website or the tabs. It doesn't right now. But like to your point, Julianne, like there will always be people that will not look for it. But if it's there for the people that want, or it's accessible, it's like requestable, like that's something. Even if Julianne, you are one person who goes and looks at it, but then how many shows or whatever have you been in with people that may text you and start going down this, you know, it gives you nuance and perspective to then go out to your network and spew nuance and perspective because, you know, then you're chatting with a friend who's like, oh, I don't believe it. And you are able to say, actually, I went down a rabbit hole one night and it's all on the website.
Right. Well, it's the nature of like viral communication, which is exactly technology's model, you know, so we're like, let's exponentialize that among ourselves since we're a union of expert communicators. We just want the information out there. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's very important and very timely.
Yeah.
And very nuanced.
Yes. Thank you so much to all three of you. I know I learned a lot. Certainly I didn't know about the email batchings. There's so much that I don't know. about how we communicate. So I really appreciate it. And I also really appreciate the transparency that you guys are putting out there, because I think a lot of people have questions but don't even know where to ask them. So keep doing your work. I am here for it. I'm supposed to say that these convention conversation episodes will be streamed live daily from now until April 24th, correct? And you can join these lovely people tomorrow, Monday, April 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time, great brunch time, for an episode on resolutions that address trying to be better at communication. I didn't even know that, y'all. I just
It's like we thought about the order of discussions.
I know, right?
And by we, I mean
our stage managers.
Our stage managers
Literally.
that worked on the literal
I love them so much.
Google sheet. Yeah, phenomenal. Heather and Ruth,
Love
thank
it.
you. We love you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you
Thanks so
tomorrow.
much.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, friends.
Thanks, Julianne.
Thank you. Appreciate